Hello and welcome to Real Talk. This is Samira Salim Bey and Yahya Salim Bey. Today our presentation is about methods of how to identify a virus. So the first question, what is Koch's method of identifying a virus and who is Koch's?
Yes, good afternoon, beloved people. I hope all is well with you. We are sort of broadcasting here live from La Herradura, Spain, and we're covering what is called Koch's Postulates as it relates to identifying infectious material, viruses, bacteria, or diseases. And there's pretty much 4 criteria. But before we cover the 4 criteria and go into the meat of it, here's a statement that was given by Frederick Douglass during the time he was a freedom fighter, an abolitionist, a writer, a civil rights advocate. He stated, if you want to find out what you can do to people, just find out what people will quietly submit to, and that will give you or tell you the exact measure of injustice you can heap upon them. Frederick Douglass. So I wanted to cover the COVID-19 and how it fails Koch's postulates, okay, and various other issues underneath the COVID-19. So who is Koch? Koch is a German scientist who made contributions to microbiology, and he establishes 4 criteria to identify causative agents of disease. This criteria became a gold standard for establishing the existence of infectious agents for isolating and verifying the infectious agents. The first one, he states that you must identify the microorganisms or infectious material in all infected individuals, but not in the healthy ones. So we have to isolate and identify this infectious material in infected individuals. 2, isolate the microorganisms and grow it in a culture. Very important. 3, introduce the cultured organism to healthy individuals, and this culture must produce in the healthy individuals the exact same disease. 4, re-isolate the microorganisms, and they must be found to be identical to the original organism that caused the disease. So those are 4 postulates that Koch put in place. And none of the 4 has been used to isolate and verify or identify COVID-19. So again, we don't even know what COVID-19 is, but as I talked in previous presentations, we know that genetic material exists in all people, and that since they didn't isolate and identify the characteristics and behavior of this particular so-called virus, we don't know what they're testing for and how they're testing for it without identifying and isolating it. COVID-19 found both in sick and healthy people. The virus has never been isolated. It must be done with proper equipment such as electron microscope to magnify it to such a degree that it can be easily identified. You cannot use CT, CAT scans, or PCR tests. PCR tests were specifically stated that you cannot use this for diagnosis of any kind of infectious disease. Scientists arrived at the idea of COVID-19. And again, how did they arrive at this COVID-19? Did it already exist? Had they already created it? If they were able to test for it, they must have had knowledge of it to be able to test for it. But at the same time, they say they had no vaccine or anything, but I have sources that show that they already had vaccines for COVID-19 or coronavirus, but for animals. Isn't that interesting? They have vaccines for animals, but not for humans. The scientists took lung fluid samples and extracted RNA using PCR tests. And as stated before, a PCR test is not to be used for such purpose. Coronavirus absolutely fails Koch's postulates. It doesn't establish the 4 criteria as it relates to isolating and identifying so-called COVID-19. So therefore, COVID-19 has not been scientifically proven. Much of what we've been hearing through the media and so-called scientific and medical community have been absolute guesswork, hearsay, but have not produced the facts as far as identifying and isolating the virus. RNA samples of genetic materials cannot be used as proof of COVID-19. Why? Because everyone has genetic material in their cells and body, or that the body gets rid of when there's been some kind of toxic effect via radiation, or when there's stress, or when there's worry, or when there's anxiety, or when there's fear. The immune system produces a response, and it releases things called exosomes. And exosomes are there, again, to carry out certain functions, such as, giving instruction or transferring information so that the body will begin to identify the invasion of foreign infectious invasion. There is no sufficient evidence to justify calling COVID-19 a new virus, because again, it's a family of viruses that existed for some time. If the virus exists, then it should be possible to purify viral particles from this material. Has it been done? To our knowledge, it has not been. RNA can be extracted and should match with the RNA used in the test. If not, it is possible that the RNA comes from another source, such as the patient's cells, bacteria, fungi, etc. RNA present is not proof that the RNA is from the virus. Again, it could be from many different sources. Without purification and characterization of the virus particles, it cannot be accepted that an RNA test is proof that the virus is present. COVID-19 test produces false positives. We know, scientists have said, the medical establishment has said, those who are administering tests, that it does in fact produce false positives. And one of the reasons why a vaccine can produce false positives is because if it has been used, or if genetic material that the body produces and the cell excretes has been used as a criteria to identify the so-called infectious agents, you're really only identifying DNA material. And therefore, when you test for this material, you will in fact find it, because most people, or if not all people, have genetic materials from their cells in their body.
This is why the number of infected people is so high, what they report, at least.
That's one of the reasons. There are many reasons why. Mostly has to do with the so-called protocol that has been mandated that the medical establishment use to identify COVID-19 infected individuals. COVID-19 does not have symptoms of its own. It shares symptoms of many organisms that cause these symptoms, and there are many. The symptoms used to diagnose COVID-19 can be caused by many other pathogens, viruses, or bacteria, as well as environmental contaminants. Irrational panic caused by an unproven RNA test that has never been connected to a virus has been devastating to our society. And it has many effects: socioeconomical, political, health, stress, anxiety, depression, death, loss of income, destruction of the economy, so forth and so on. Medical industries rely on PCR tests, which are wholly inadequate. And again, the creators of the PCR tests have stated that these tests should not be used to identify an infectious agent. It is unreliable. One of the creators of the PCR test, Mari Mullen, says this: tests should not be used to prove infectious etiology or diagnose. Tests can be manipulated by choosing how many cycles or amplifications to run. So as you run these cycles, you basically amplify the so-called material or agents, and by amplifying it, for example, some diseases, if you lower the number of cycles like to 35, can make everyone appear negative. While if you increase the number above 35 cycles, it can make everyone appear positive. So you see the problem with some of the protocol testing or criteria. Powerful antiviral drugs, if given to older people with pre-existing health conditions, are likely to lead to many deaths and complications.
You think this is the reason why we see a lot of deaths in older people?
Absolutely, there's some correlation connection. In addition to the fact that most of the people that they're identifying dying after having been tested, listen to the language, died after having been tested for COVID-19. Doesn't say that they actually had the virus or it's been proven or isolated in them, but that they have been tested and they died after the test was administered, which is very misleading. It's very fallacious. But the fact that many of the people have pre-existing conditions, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, respiratory illnesses and diseases, such as and many more. These are some of the reasons and facts that are stated that once you've disclosed the whole truth, that the people dying are dying from other diseases. But because they've been tested, they are designating the deaths as being caused by COVID-19.
Plus, just pharmaceutical drugs themselves are killing people little by little without even being older. It doesn't matter the age.
It occurs mostly in older people. Antiviral drugs, again, cause tremendous damage to the body, the health, which includes mandatory vaccinations. Okay, and these mandatory vaccinations that will be coming up in the very near future, which they're hurting us into, will create many, many health problems and deaths. Again, if you have the information in regards to the vaccinations, the history, and the effects, you will find out that they are causing many health issues, they're causing deaths, they're causing diseases, and all sorts of things because there's so much in these vaccines, and much of it has not been proven to be beneficial to the health of those who receive the vaccines, but detrimental. All humans have viruses as part of their virome. It's called the virome, an immune system. The human body has approximately 6 trillion cells. 60 trillion is bacteria. 380 trillion is viruses. Did you know that? I was not aware until I began to look into information about viruses. The virome, collective community of viruses, plays a role in our healing. I didn't know that. Did you? They always give us the impression that viruses are bad guys and they cause disease and cause problems.
Yeah. But according to the research, they're saying that viruses play a role in your immunity because when you get a virus, your body kind of already knows it and fight it.
Yeah. The inner terrain versus outer terrain. Mainstream paradigm teaches that viruses are bad guys, which can invade the body and cause disease and death. The mainstream paradigm reinforces the need for big pharma drugs and vaccines. The origin of viruses are from exosomes, or genetic material, tiny particles our bodies produce. And exosomes are not infectious agents, but they're simply genetic material that's produced by the cell. The exosome theory states that if cells are poisoned, they produce viruses, secretions, to clean up the toxins. Okay? Coronavirus pandemic is an unprecedented worldwide psyop-based theory or explanation or model exploiting our ignorance over the true nature of viruses. There's no proof that any of the pandemic is real. We're not saying that it's not, but proof has not been produced. If you want people to know the truth, to know the facts, then it's very important that the facts are reported as they are, not fudged, not made up, not fabricated. There's no lab procedure that can peer into the human body in real time to witness the active replication of millions of viruses. I am not saying that people are not getting sick. People have always been getting sick. People have always been dying. Problem is, we don't know what they're dying from, except what we're told. But it is highly questionable whether or not it is from COVID-19. Highly questionable. Some other symptoms reported by Chinese were nausea, diarrhea, tiredness, poor concentration, headaches, irregular heartbeats, chest pain, cornea inflammation, muscular pains in the limbs, the back, and the waist. And French scientists warn that COVID-19 may cause dermatological problems such as hives, painful red skin, and a condition similar to frostbite. We haven't heard much of those symptoms, but there's been around 3 or 4 symptoms that they claim, sore throat, cough, fever, flu-like symptoms, etc.
Some of these symptoms, drugs themselves cause a lot more than these symptoms. Like every drug you read, like the side effects, they'll have a lot of these symptoms.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Yeah. I don't know why they call them side effects in the first place, because there's such thing as called the law of cause and effect. For every effect there's a cause, and for every cause there's effects. So it's basically effect, direct effect of something. It's a cause and effect relationship, not side effects. Side effects is a language that is misleading.
As always.
Yeah. So a multitude of lasting damages from these, from this so-called COVID-19 or whatever is causing these things. And again, we'll only know what is being reported. We don't know, where this data is actually coming from. But a multitude of lasting damages they report includes, but not limited to, heart problems, liver damage, brain damage, lung damage. Okay. The Chinese military experts revealed that recovered patients' immune system is totally destroyed. You don't hear that in reporting the mainstream media or the medical establishment. And they could remain contagious even after so-called remission.
So that means that anybody who supposedly have the virus could infect other people later?
Become reinfected, infect other people, could in fact have it and be asymptomatic.
So nobody's safe then?
Not according to this Chinese military expert. The recovered patient's immune system is totally destroyed and they can remain contagious. He added, do not expect a vaccine. And normally a vaccine is anywhere from a year to 18 months. Plus, again, we don't know what these vaccines contain, but we do know the history of vaccines have been more detrimental than the diseases themselves. Those who have been infected will have a lot of trouble, according to these experts. A few other things I'd like to cover very quickly. Questions and some information. One of the questions I have is, where's the coverage of COVID-19 deaths in real time? Why not show the coverage of the system being overwhelmed? They claim that hospitals are overwhelmed and overrun. Normally, in reporting of wars and things of that nature and reporting of, cataclysms, they show you clips of news and all the damage and the effects. You don't see much of that reported in the media in regards to this COVID-19 or this pandemic. So a question, where's the coverage? Where are the mass graves or burials that are occurring? Why aren't they covering that? Why aren't they showing the people? Because this would lend validity to it, possibly, even though we may not know what caused the deaths,
Or the lines of people waiting to test. As we saw some reports, there was nobody in the waiting rooms and emergencies and all that. Like, we're basically getting false information.
Possibly false information. Again, this is called how to lie with statistics. Anthony Fauci's, he stated himself, his models are only as good as the assumptions. In other words, it's guesswork. So the models in which they base this whole COVID pandemic on is highly speculative, guesswork. Okay? Where's the proof? The real data. Okay? This man has been around for 40 plus years, benefiting from the death, sickness, and exploitation of people. And he has proven to have vested interest in the pharmaceutical and vaccine productions. So his allegiance and his purpose and his mission is highly questionable as to whether or not he has the best interests of people and the human populations at heart. One of the things Muammar Gaddafi stated, he said, viruses will be created and then they will come with the vaccines for it. Isn't that interesting? A man who was assassinated, he was attempting before his death or assassination to produce some very positive things for his people, his nation, for the advancement of his country. We have a traditional practice of mass graves, 150 years of practice of mass graves. The practice is being sensationalized as a result of COVID-19. Deaths are coded for COVID-19 because doctors are being pressured to use mandated protocol. They've even been told to go around and get people to sign, documents stating "do not resuscitate." Wonder why they're doing that. Possibility of being able to add those to the statistics of deaths caused by COVID-19. Question: are the politicians and the media practicing social distance and self-quarantine? I don't know. They haven't shown that. But that's a question I have. Are they practicing social quarantine and social distancing? Where's the proof that COVID-19 has ever been isolated and verified? Again, it has never been isolated and verified. They have not shown us proof. They have not convinced us. There's many questions around this whole pandemic or pandemic thing. How is it possible for autopsies to be done for all the people supposedly dying from COVID-19, this overwhelming deaths? How are they possible to do autopsies to prove that the deaths were caused by COVID-19? Again, you hear in the media statements like, this number of people or this person or that person have died after testing positive for COVID-19. This doesn't state definitively that they died from COVID-19. It's a play on words. Very questionable. We are living in real-time dictatorship under war powers. Control of the official narrative is what makes this dictatorship work. We have been conditioned from the cradle to the grave to accept authority without question, to go along to get along, to do whatever you're told. And this reporting, this politicizing of the disease, the destruction it has caused, has produced more chaos and fear than anything in the history of the world. Why? Because the people believe what they are being told. Without question, if people question the official narrative, they're being censored, villainized, and ostracized. And people have a right to want to know. People have a right to question. If they cannot confirm that the statements and the narratives is in fact true or factual, has been scientifically proven, and that the COVID-19 has been in fact scientifically isolated and verified, you have to ask questions. And asking the right questions will get you the right answers in most cases, unless those who are being questioned refuse to outright give the facts and truth after being asked the question. So whether real or not, okay, the evidence have not been shown or scientifically proven according to Koch's postulates.
You can ask the question, but it doesn't mean you're going to get the true answers still.
Right? That's what I said. Okay.
And you talked about not being free, because here in Spain they're giving fines. If they find 2 people in one car, they'll fine you from 2,000 up to 30,000. So that is an incentive for people to stay home and to not go out and to not go against whatever society says.
What they're being told, yeah. I'd like to, if I can, quickly just read a letter sent to me by a friend from West Virginia, a very vigilant young man. I won't mention the names because I'm not asking him if I could mention his name. But if he hears this and watch this presentation, he will know who he is. There's a series of questions that he raises. And those questions are, what if? What if the number of coronavirus cases is not accurate and is actually exaggerated by many times? What if the estimates are based on flawed computer models? What if the developer of the model has also admitted that? What if the death certificates are being modified to show more coronavirus-related deaths than actually exist? What if people who were already dying of serious diseases like heart disease, diabetes, COPD are now being counted as coronavirus deaths because of a supposed presence of coronavirus at the time of death?
Very quickly, one time when we were watching a video, it says that doctors were getting incentives to sign the death certificate that people dying from the coronavirus.
Yeah, they're getting paid so much per, death. Gives them an incentive to follow the protocol. And many of the doctors are disagreed and they're very uncomfortable with following this protocol. Those would be the whistleblowers or dissenters, but many of them are going along
because
to
that
get
goes,
along and to be paid.
That goes against their
Hippocratic oath, of course. What if hospitals are assuming people have coronaviruses just because they exhibit one or more symptoms? You know, all these questions are going along with the presentation I just gave. Like a cough or fever, even though no actual lab testing is performed, presumptive diagnosis. What if the CDC is as wrong about this virus as they were about swine flu in 1976, or since then, the bird flu, or HIV, or SARS, or MERS? What if the swine flu vaccine injured more people than the swine flu itself and the program had to be stopped? What if you found out that Fauci had very large financial ties to the pharma agenda to provide vaccines, and that is why he is not mentioning any possible way to treat the flu except vaccines? What if Fauci has close financial connections to Bill, the computer and vaccine salesman Gates? What if natural immunity from a virus entering your system through the throat is far superior to a synthetic chemical cocktail called a vaccine shot into your body with a needle? What if the alleged COVID-19 deaths were mostly people who were already dying? What if your best defense against all viruses was a healthy immune system? What if inexpensive things like vitamins A, C, and D3 could boost your immune system? What if zinc and selenium were important to immune health? What if the people who play doctors on TV never mention the importance of vitamins and minerals? What if social distancing really does not stop you from getting the virus, but only slows down the transfer of the virus through the population? What if slowing down the transfer of virus is just another way of prolonging the life of the virus and the crisis and the panic and the control of our lives? What if wearing masks does not really stop the virus? What if the virus can enter through your eyes and ears, which are connected to your mouth and throat? What if the virus is simply a seasonal flu, just like every other year, and the crisis is a drastic exaggeration to intentionally create panic? What if there really is nothing to fear but fear itself? And I won't read the rest of it, but those are very interesting questions worth having answers to. And I just wanted to read that because it is right in line with the presentation I just gave. So we thank you very much for watching. Please share this information. You may want to subscribe. If you haven't already, hit like, and don't forget the bell to get notified for our upcoming videos. This is Real Talk with Yahya Salim Bey and my wife, Samira Salim Bey. Do you have any other questions, Yahya?
No, I just want to thank you guys for watching, and please don't accept anything, question everything, and do your own search so you can be informed.
See you for the next upcoming presentation, God willing, and we pray that the information that we have provided have produced some thought-provoking and soul-searching, and have encouraged you to be critical in your thinking and to question and ask questions about everything. Don't be sheeple, but question everything, no matter how true it may sound or how ridiculous.
Thank you, guys.